Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC. Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. My name is Joseph Patterson, and tonight we're going to be talking about saving Jamaica now and exposing the oligarchy and the trick that is being used against us. So welcome to all of you who are online to join us right off the bat. Joan Levine, Desmond Myrie, good night to you. Dorrit Elliott, good to see you on from Manchester Central. JMH, good night to you as well. Norma Smith, Howard Foster. The early birds are here to participate in our discourse tonight. I'm also going to take your questions, and I'm hoping some of you can join me. So feel free to let me know if you want to come on and show yourself on camera and talk about some of the issues that are important to you. Today I had quite a good meeting with some of the taxi drivers, and we talked about more of the details about what they're going through, what they're faced with, and it's really sickening when you get into understanding what is happening with the public transport operators. You'll be very sympathetic. The narrative which you hear from day to day and what the government would like you to believe about taxi operators, where they try to tell you that it's about law and order. Well, they're the ones who created the disorder, and they're the ones who break even the laws they make. They make bad laws sometimes, and they break even the good laws that they create, and they design policies which affects the way you see us behaving. And many of the bad behavior you see in our society, a lot of the bad behavior is actually created by the policies of government. Bad policies bring out bad behavior. So we're going to talk about that. Good night, For's the Truth. Good to see you on. Kirk, welcome, sir. And Cool Guy, big up to all uniters. Carol Spence, Arrow, AV. What's that now? Zami, good to see you on. So tonight we're going to talk about how we can save Jamaica. And I'm hoping I can share a few things with you. I want to kick this off by actually sharing with you the introduction to the PSOJ. I want you to see how the PSOJ introduces itself to the Jamaican people, and particularly to the private sector. And before I get into that, I want to make sure I clarify something. The private sector is a very important sector. The private sector is you and me. So the true private sector is not the PSOJ. PSOJ stands for Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. Now, it is an organization, it is an association, it is a group of business people that come together as an organization. But that is not the sum total of the private sector. In any society, there are two sectors, the public sector and the private sector. The public sector is really those persons who are working as employees of the government. So teachers, firefighters, police officers, soldiers, public works kind of employees. All of those who are working for the government are considered public sector workers. And then you have now, and of course, the politicians. And then you have private sector, which is, the rest of us. All of us who are not in government, who are not working for the government, constitute the private sector. But there's a subsector, a smaller group within the group of the private sector that is known as the PSOJ, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. Now, that's a very powerful organization. And within that organization is an even smaller cluster, which I refer to as the oligarchy. The oligarchy is a Greek word which comes from oligarchy, which means, rulership by the few. So you might have something called a democracy where you think you elect the people who are going to govern you, and let me not even use the word govern, the people who are going to represent you. So in a representative or representational system, those you elect are supposed to be representing your interest. Since all of it couldn't go stuff up in a parliament or sit in a Congress or whatever, we send representatives to go to a legislative body where they sit down and discuss the things of importance to us, water, roads, education, healthcare, street lights, all of those things. And they should be discussing how do we manage the tax dollars that we have to effectively use those tax dollars to ensure in every community it is safe, clean, and orderly. It has good roads, sidewalks, street lights, public parks, library, community center, all the things you need for a decent society. That's what your representatives should be going to this governmental institution to work on. Of course, we haven't done such a great job here in Jamaica of that. We elect 63 people in parliament, and we have about 228 councillors and mayors and stuff in the municipal level. And we have a budget of about $993 billion that the government takes in one way or the other through direct or indirect taxations. But for some reason, our government is unable to use that money and unable to use those 63 brains and 228 brains to give us what we need. So tonight I want to explain to you why you're not getting what you need. Why is it that your government is not working effectively? And then we want to discuss how are we going to rescue Jamaica from bad governance. What do we need to do to rescue Jamaica from it? So I call it, let's save Jamaica now. And by the way, you can call in, call in on the phone. The numbers are on the screen. Well, not. I should give you one number. Let me make sure you have only one number, because you're not going to get us on all of those numbers just now. Here's the number. You'll get us on this number. And so you can call me on that number to discuss matters of importance to you as it relates to the governance of Jamaica. So we're all set on the phone here. You can call in whenever. So as I was saying, by the way, let me just respond to a few comments here. Alan Scott says, thanks, UIC. We appreciate you and all members. And we appreciate you too, Alan. Thank you so much. Peace and blessing from Scotty. Cameras everywhere, Mr. Patterson, and drones. Yes. Good night, Uniters, from Sonia Kildare. Welcome, Ms. Sonia. And Ms. Elliott says, President, Professor. I'm Dorrit Elliott, Councillor Candidate for North Patrick Division. Yeah, man, I know that, Miss Elliott. I know that it's you. And I see my good friend Gloria Williams on as well. Gloria Williams over there in Westmoreland, I believe. Yes, as I was saying, we're going to talk about the PSOJ and want to understand the relationship between the PSOJ and the government. How does those two entities interact? and specifically not just the PSOJ in general, but the subset within the PSOJ, which comes together. You don't see them coming together. You don't hear them coming together. What you see and what you hear and what you feel is just the impact of them without knowing that it's the impact of the PSOJ oligarchy. And remember, oligarchy means rule by a few. So it's a few men and women who are ruling you and me. And it's not the elected representatives that are ruling. Of course, we don't want any rulers. What we wanted were representatives who were going to protect our individual rights and our collective public interest. Yeah. And I was saying to you earlier on, for some strange reason, our government in Jamaica, since 1944 until now, 79 years, they have not been able to figure out how to give us the basics of what we need. Yeah. So the basics of what we need, they don't know how to give us the basics of that. And so let me just ask your apology or your forgiveness rather for a spelling error that's on our projection. I see that Jamaica is missing, well, the last A is replaced by an E. So forgive the typo for me, please. But yes, but I want to now share with you, before we go any further, a little video that was produced by our production team here. Let me know if you like it. Let me see if I can get that video up here. 1 second. All right, I think I can. Yeah, let's share. Are you seeing that? Let me know if you're seeing. Yes, I think you are seeing it. And I'm going to play that little video for you in a little bit here. So let's try that now. Let's see if we can play that side by side maybe. No. 1 second here. Let's see if we can play that for you.
Did you know that Jamaica is not a poor country? It's merely a poorly run country. You see, the colonial system of governance that we inherited from our British colonizers was created to keep the rich wealthy and to make the poor poorer, while concentrating power in the hands of a few, facilitating corruption and nepotism. Help us change this abusive, corrupt system of governance by electing UIC candidates who are committed to ending the mass corruption, poverty, and crime that have been plaguing our nation for 79 years under the two colonial parties. These two parties rely on funding from big corporations that have their own private special interests that benefit them, but not you. Instead, let us fund our own movement to ensure that the United Independence Congress is on the ballot so that you can vote for a system that works for and benefits you, the people, and not just the few. Help us raise money for the upcoming local government elections. If just 5,000 of us donate 5,000 Jamaican dollars each, we would raise 25 million Jamaican dollars to fund our campaign. Your donations will fund representatives that come from your constituencies, your municipal divisions, your communities. Jamaica needs your help. Join us in building a new Jamaica powered by you. Let's save Jamaica now.
All right. I hope you liked that little video that was produced by our good friend, Mr. Douglas Harper, together with the help of other members of the team. Let me know what you think about it, if you think it's a good video. The essence of the video is that we have to understand that the PSOJ oligarchy is fully funding the other two parties. And if we're going to bring about change, then we have to fund our own movement to do that. So let us look now on what is the purpose. Well, first of all, how does the PSOJ introduce itself to the Jamaican people in public? What does it say about itself in public? And then we're going to dig into that and see what they actually really do and how that impacts your country, your economy, your government. So let's take a look at how the PSOJ introduces itself to the world. Yeah, and then we can see what we can glean from that. Let's take a look.
Welcome to the PSOJ. Hi, I'm Anika Jangeli, Member Relations Manager at the PSOJ. At the PSOJ, we are focused on you, our valued members. We are serious about seeing your business thrive. Become a part of Jamaica's strongest private sector network and feel the power of PSOJ membership. Becoming a member of the PSOJ is simple. 1. Identify which category of membership is ideal for you. You can join the PSOJ as an individual, a business, or an association, and you don't even have to be based in Jamaica. 2. Visit our website at psoj.org/memberships and complete the application form for your category of membership. Or email us at membership@psoj.org and we will send the forms to you. 3. Once you've completed the forms, our member relations team will contact you and notify you when your application has been processed. 4. Pay your membership fee on our convenient and secure online payment portal and feel the power of the PSOJ membership. Join the PSOJ today. For more information, call us at 876-809-1064 or email us at membership@psoj.org.
Yeah, what a lovely presentation, eh? Very nice presentation. Lovely organization based on what you're seeing there. And of course, nothing is wrong with having a private sector organization of Jamaica. Nothing is wrong with having any associations at all that are formed for the interest of their members. Where you have a problem is when this organization is powerful enough to circumvent your democratic process or to circumvent your system of governance and constitution and to exert significant amount of influence over your government to the point where you literally wipe out the power of the people themselves. And you might be saying, really, Mr. Patterson, is the PSOJ so powerful? Is it really controlling our government? Is it really influencing our government in any significant way that is overpowering the citizens? Yes, it is. And I'm going to show you exactly how and why that is happening. If you look at Jamaica's economy seriously, you'll notice that most Jamaicans are economically poor, financially distressed, financially challenged. The vast majority. As a matter of fact, 90% of Jamaicans earn less than the US poverty line. 90%. 10% of Jamaicans controls 90% of the wealth in Jamaica. So very few people in Jamaica control the vast majority of the wealth. Now, if you control the vast majority of the wealth, you control a number of things. You control the banking sector. You control the education of the people because you can influence what is being taught and what is going on in our school. You control the economy by virtue of controlling government policy. You can cause the government to make laws and regulations that are disproportionately negative to one or more sectors in the economy. You can make oppressive rules that oppresses a particular sector or oppresses the small man in favor of the big man. So having a small number of persons in the economy with a huge amount of wealth, and having that being the driving force of your politics, the amount of wealth that a person has give them greater say in your political process, means a small number of people can control your government and your economy. A small number of people can control your media, so they can determine what the media tells you, what the media says, how the media shapes your thinking, how the media shapes the stories that you receive, how the media controls the temperature in the country. Now, it doesn't mean they have absolute power, because people will and can rise up in various ways, but they can also be, kept down and kept misinformed, and can also be divided. I'll give you a case in point. Most Jamaicans think very badly of taxi drivers and other public passenger vehicle operators. Why do they think so negatively about these persons? Well, because when they look at them, they see taxi drivers always driving poorly, most times driving very poorly. They see them overtaking aggressively, stopping suddenly at different points, letting off persons at awkward moments, obstructing traffic, if you will, endangering lives and property by the way that they're conducting themselves. And so it's very, very easy for us to say, look at those bad taxi drivers. So anything that they do or anything that the government does to them, we take it for granted that, yeah, man, we need to do something to them because they're too bad. For example, many taxi drivers have a lot of tickets, given to them by the police for various things, obstructing traffic, bad driving, exceeding speed limits, all kinds of tickets they get. And I'm sure many of these tickets, or some of them at least, are well deserved and should be given. But then if you dig deeper, you might be surprised to find out that many of these drivers are driving the way they do, not because they necessarily want to, but because public policy, government policy, pushes them to behave this way. In Kingston, for example, and many other areas, there are no, in fact, almost every area, there are no taxi stops. You don't see taxi sign, taxis stop here. So taxi drivers stop at different points. And when they do, the police has discretion to ticket them or not. And they often do. In the past, when taxis used to do a lot of white plates and so on, and police would stop them, they could pay them off, and so that created a corruption cycle. Now they have more stringent measures. They have plates on their vehicles, but the policy of the government makes it very difficult for them to pick up and drop off passengers in an effective manner. The policy also, when you look at the cost structure, I was talking to the taxi drivers today, and when I look at the cost structure for the typical taxi driver, after he pays his $40,000 a month loan on his vehicle, $30,000 on insurance, and the massive wear and tear cost on his vehicle for dropping into the potholes and all that kind of stuff, plus the license and fitness fees, and don't forget the high cost of gas. And guess who sets the rate? The government sets the rate that he can charge. So if the rate of pay, the rate that he can charge the customer, doesn't line up sufficiently with the cost of operating the vehicle, including all of the bad costs by government, the bad road and all that issue, and then now the police is ticketing you on top of it for every turn and twist, which maybe rightly ticketing you, but the situation has made it so that you almost have to get a ticket. When you factor all those costs together and the taxi driver trying to make a profit to be able to take care of his family, you might find that he's incentivized to behave as he does. Because most persons who are in a decent operating space will not be incentivized to do the things that you see these taxi drivers do. But there's a rationale and a reason behind it that you and I wouldn't normally understand because we're not in the taxi driver's shoes. So the taxi drivers need very good advocates. They need to have a very strong association. They need to have somebody that can properly articulate their challenges to the public and then defend them against the government's draconian measures, which are not commensurate with the government providing the environment for them to be able to behave properly. So government failing to provide good policies, failing to provide good roads, failing to provide good system of drop off and pick up, and also issuing more licenses for areas than they should, creating a glut and all of that subsequently result in the mess that we have today. And then the government comes on television and speak nicely about how they want law and order, and here are these bad people, and so they make them out into these bad people. What does all of this though have to do with the PSOJ oligarchy? What does it have to do with them? All right, let me show you a little clip of how the oligarchy worked in the US. All right, so I'm going to show you a clip that explains how the oligarchy worked in the US, and you're going to see how significantly it impacted the US landscape in the early years. And then you want to translate that to how it's working in Jamaica. And I'm going to show you how the oligarchy influences even what you're seeing in the taxi or public transport operation space. And when that understanding comes to you, your mind will be blown to realize that all is not as it seems sometimes. There can be some significant hidden forces behind the scenes with objectives, with agendas that are not clear to you, and they lead you down a path to think one way when they have an objective to achieve something the other way. But before I show you exactly what might be happening here in Jamaica's public transportation system and other areas, but I'm picking that one because it's most topical right now, I'm going to first show you a video clip, and that video clip is going to explain to you how the oligarchy worked in the US in the early years. Yeah. And hopefully you can see a parallel. You can start to connect the dots and seeing, between the lines and understanding how, this might be happening here. Not might be, it is actually happening here in Jamaica. Yeah. And the only question is whether or not we are going to become aware, and with that awareness now, decide to do something about it. And the UIC is offering us the opportunity to see and understand and do something about it. Okay? So the following film is going to show you the impact of the oligarchy in the US in the early years. And it's still happening today. Right now, there are some powerful forces that controls the government of the US. And there are powerful forces that controls the government here in Jamaica. And one of those forces, the most dominant force locally in Jamaica, which by the way is linked internationally as well, and they are controlling the experience you're having, the experience we are having. They are controlling that experience. They are influencing that experience. They are causing us to have the experience we have. And the sooner we understand that they're causing that experience, is the more able we're going to be at fixing that problem. And so I want us to now look at this film. I'm going to start it not at the very beginning, somewhat in the early stages, and hopefully we can get a good enough feel for what's going on. So let's take a look now at this, and we'll come right back and discuss its implications for us here in Jamaica.
After inheriting and expanding his father's banking empire, J.P. Morgan is now among the most powerful men in the nation. His influence over the country is matched by only two other men. Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller have been rivals for decades. And that competition has driven both men to incredible heights. At the peak of their power, J.P. Morgan, John Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie are worth the modern equivalent of over $1 trillion combined. More than the entire net worth of the 40 richest people alive today.
The wealth then was like royalty. It was just a different thing. They literally controlled the country. When you're talking about a guy like Rockefeller, it was literally 1% of the economy. It's stunning to think about that. It is almost incomprehensible.
But while Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Morgan continue to get richer, others are struggling to get by. The gap between the rich and the poor is as big as it's ever been. Over 90% of Americans survive on less than $100 per month, while the average worker earns barely $1 a day, well below the poverty line. Working conditions in factories across the country are almost unbearable. In a single year, 1 out of every 11 steel workers will die while on the job. As the country approaches the 1896 presidential election, America's poor are desperate and without hope. One man seized the opportunity to harness their anger, and in the process, propel himself to the White House. William Jennings Bryan. Bryan runs on a ticket promising equality for all, vowing to be a voice for the poor, and to take the fight to the country's elite.
The great combinations of capital have encroached upon the rights of the masses. No man can earn $1 million honestly.
He made himself the spokesman for the common man. He was the great commoner. There's no doubt that he tapped into something that was vital to most Americans that were not well off.
Republicans endeavor to overthrow and discredit all who honestly administer the law, and to allow every wrongdoer to operate unchecked as long as he has enough money.
The monopolies, the trusts became a target of Democrats, so that antitrust became a rallying cry of everybody who was, well, not seen as in the hip pocket of the corporations themselves.
I will tear down these trusts. Do you hear me, Carnegie? Do you hear me, Rockefeller?
Bryan's emergence is the biggest threat the Titans have ever faced. He promises to dismantle their companies and to not rest until they're behind bars.
This is William Jennings Bryan at a recent Democrat rally. He's a prohibitionist and a devout Presbyterian. According to him, Darwin's theory of evolution is a pack of lies. He's an enemy of the gold standard and an enemy of big business. It is certain that he will win the Democratic nomination. What do you think?
The Republican Party has a good candidate.
No. We have to buy our own president.
They took advantage of the strengths. When you have, what relatively speaking is an unlimited amount of money, you can pay people to do almost anything for you.
Desperate to protect the empires they've spent their lifetimes building, the Titans throw their full support behind the candidacy of Ohio Governor William McKinley.
William McKinley's campaign manager was an industrialist himself. And he went essentially hat in hand around Wall Street, dunning them, saying, if McKinley doesn't win, that crazy man Bryan will be president. And if Bryan is president, don't you realize what that is going to do to the credibility of the United States around the world?
The Titans wield more power than any group of men in American history. And they're about to use it.
Much appreciated. This is McKinley's speech that he'll be giving at the Republican convention.
Make sure he sees it in time.
Understood.
Rockefeller, Morgan, and Carnegie each give over $200,000 to McKinley, the equivalent of $20 million today. The campaign is by far the most expensive in American history, and McKinley outspends Bryan by a factor of 5 to 1. But they don't just fund their candidate. The group wields tremendous influence, and they aren't shy about using it. Suggesting headlines and orchestrating PR campaigns aimed at getting McKinley elected.
It was easier to buy the publicity that you wanted in those days than it is now. The news media was a smaller market, and it was easier to feed information to your favorite correspondents then than it probably is now.
Bryan fights back. He undertakes the country's first whistle-stop press tour, crisscrossing the nation and speaking directly to the people. The tour becomes the model for the way presidential campaigns are conducted to this day. Bryan gives over 500 speeches to huge crowds across the country.
I will put rings in the noses of these hogs.
Publicly attacking the nation's richest and most powerful men, and vowing to usher in a whole new era. As Bryan's campaign gains traction, the nation's leading industrialists turn to fear tactics.
Many big employers, many big industrialists said, if Bryan wins the election, business is going to be so bad, we're simply closing shop. So if Bryan wins on election Tuesday, don't bother showing up for work on the next day because there won't be jobs. Well, if you're a worker and this is something that confronts you, you're going to think very seriously, even if you had been intending to vote for Bryan. Which way does, maybe your heart leans toward Bryan, but where does your pocketbook point?
On election day, the lines are drawn. It's Wall Street versus Main Street. Rich versus poor. One of the things.
Okay, so they have interrupted our feed. Am I back with you now? Am I here? Let me know if I'm here with you, if you can see me and hear me. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Hello, let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. Am I back with you? Let me know if I'm back with you. Hello, am I here? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me, okay? If you can see me if I'm back. I know that they're playing with the stream. Hello, can you hear me? It seems not. It's amazing. Okay. Let me know if you can hear me or we're still down. Are we still down? Okay. Let me know if you can hear me or we're still. All right. Are we back now? Can you all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me now. Okay, good. So yeah, I'm gonna share the link to the video so you can watch it fully. I'll put the link in the if I can get it here. Seems like I'm being blocked from the comment section, but let me try. Let me see here. There seems to be okay. Not sure why. All right, so I can't share the link with you either. I was trying to do that just now. All right. So you saw enough of it to appreciate what I was trying to say to you, really. Yes, the title of the video that you were seeing is Buying the White House. So it's called Buying the White House, The Men Who Built America. So you can look it up, Buying the White House, The Men Who Built America. So that can give you, you can check that out. In any event, I think you got the gist of the message. Now, the PSOJ oligarchy in Jamaica is identical to what you were seeing in that video, except that they're even more powerful than what you saw in that video, because Jamaica is a relatively small country and small market, and a few persons, a small group of persons, owns the media. So they own the media, they own the banks, they own all of the big companies in Jamaica, and they own the two traditional, well-known colonial parties. But you're getting an echo. I'm not sure why you're getting an echo. I'm sorry about that. But they own the parties as well. They own the two parties. Yeah? So they own both of them. So whether or not you vote for one or the other of the two parties, you are in effect voting for the PSOJ oligarchy. You're voting for their policies. Now, what what has been their policies? What is the policies of the PSOJ organization that might help the PSOJ oligarchy? This is the subset of the PSOJ. Let's see what they're about. I'm going to share with you now their if I can, let me see. I'm going to share with you their website, and we're going to look at if I can find it here. We're going to look at what they say about themselves. It's a bit small. Let me see if I can make it a bit bigger for you so you can see what they say here. It's a lot of words. Well, I'll read it for you anyway. So, if you look at the page on their website that speaks to our organization, it tells you a little bit about what they're about in a format that is sanitized for public consumption. So it says the PSOJ organization was established in 1976. It is a national organization of private sector associations, companies, and individuals working together to promote a competitive and productive private sector organization. Now, that statement needs some clarification, first of all. So this particular version of the PSOJ was established in 1976. So this organized body was established in 1976. But the PSOJ existed in different forms prior to 1976. So if you were in Jamaica prior to 1976, the organizational name that might characterize the PSOJ back then would have been the plantocracy. The landowners and the merchants, they would have their own organization which did not use the phrase PSOJ or Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. But in 1976, they formalized themselves into this particular group and call it the PSOJ. So don't think that this is started in 1976. This is before. However, 1976 is a very important year because that is the year or the period when Michael Manley was embarking on some significant social changes. You know, he wanted to empower the ordinary Jamaican who was being disempowered by the then economic powerhouses that controlled Jamaica at the time. So he had ambitions to see if he could change Jamaica so that the poor and the marginalized could have greater opportunity for upward mobility. So that was Michael Manley. Good intentions, very good intentions. Unfortunately, he did not deal with the problems the UIC is trying to deal with, which is you have to change the system. So he was trying to fix these problems within the system that he inherited from his father and Bustamante, which was given to them by the colonial powers and subsequently given to us, and then became the chains around our feet and our necks and our brains for the next several years. So I wanted to clarify that part for you. The 1976 PSOJ existed long before that, not in this name, but the principle remained the same. Notice it says that it's a national organization of private sector association, companies, and individuals working together to promote a competitive and productive private sector. Now, this is a false statement. It's a nice statement, a lovely statement, which if it was true, would be very good for us. But the PSOJ is not promoting any competitive and productive private sector. Because remember, private sector is me and you. Private sector is we, all Jamaicans, are a part of the private sector if we're not working for the government. But they're not working to build a truly competitive environment. They're working to build an environment where a few controls the wealth of the nation, and the majority are kept as wage slaves or worse. Okay? So this is a nice statement, but it actually speaks to the opposite of what they're actually doing. And you'll always find that with these organizations with their various agenda, they will say the right thing or a nice sounding thing, but it means something else. It's like the World Economic Forum telling you a nice sounding statement that you're going to own nothing but be happy. But if you think about it carefully, you'll be saying, what does that mean? Owning nothing but being happy. Because they know that the great objective that they have in mind is to make us propertyless, just like slaves in the past, having nothing at all, and we'll be happy according to their definition of happy when they keep us in a particular way. But continuing along, the next sentence says, the organization seeks to influence issues of national policy. Yeah, it seeks to influence issues of national policy. On screen here, so it seeks to influence issues of national policy of a political. Let me show you that. You need to see it. Let me show you that. I'm going to make it a bit bigger so you see that particular piece here. See that? Political, social, and economic nature. So their plan, their policy, their idea is to influence policy of a political, social, and economic nature. Sounds good, eh? But this is really true. They are going to influence our politics. They are going to influence our social development, or the lack thereof. They are going to influence the nature of our economy. And the influence of all of this results in the Jamaica that you see today. The influence of the PSOJ oligarchy on our politics, our social development, and our economic nature is what you see today. So they are truly influencing our economy in some great ways. It says the executive committee, under guidance from the council, leads the process by promoting discussion with the country's government, political directorate, and the opposition. The organization is also in close and constant contact with the major multilateral and bilateral agencies. You know what this means? They have their tentacles, they have their hands, they have full connection with all of the instruments that affects Jamaica. The government, political directorate, opposition, and multilateral and bilateral agencies internationally. So oftentimes, position the colonial powers have, the PSOJ oligarchy is in lockstep with those objectives and work to make sure that our government is lockstep with those objectives too. And the end result of that is that we, the people of Jamaica, are not in the equation. You and I we are just pawns. We exist to legitimize the government. Because remember, the PSOJ now, they are in full consort with the colonial masters, the multilateral and bilateral and multinational agencies and whatever. So when they say, here is what we want to happen in the world, and here's what we want to happen in Jamaica as a result, the PSOJ is in line with that. So if the dictate is, we want to inject something in the entire world, the multilateral agencies, the international agencies, the global powers, the global authorities, the global elites, say they want to do this to the world because the PSOJ, their fundamental objective is money, profits. And nothing is wrong with a person wanting to pursue profits. That's fine. But when you allow them to group up and have the power to override the will of the people and to override the interest of the people and to override the future of the people, then you have a problem. I have no problem with a free market. In fact, the UIC fully and unequivocally support a free and fair economy. But they're not providing a free and fair economy. What they're doing is making sure that they can corner and control our economy through our government by buying the prime minister, by buying the cabinet, by buying the opposition, by buying the courts, by buying the media, by dictating the education system. And as a result, they get to dumb down, regulate, control, and drive the people in the direction that they want, and therefore control everybody else. So when you see now the chaos in the transport sector, the antagonism of the government, their aggression against the street people, the people selling on the street, their aggression against the taxi drivers and bus operators, their budgeted plans to ticket. So they put in their budget the plan, how much they're going to ticket us, the Jamaican people, taxi drivers and bus operators, how much revenue they're going to get by setting up traps to ticket us as a way of raising revenues for the government. And then they give you a very difficult justice system, so you want to avoid it. So if they ticket you, don't bother to challenge it. Just go pay it. Because if you don't pay it, you're going to suffer a painful experience in trying to get justice. So the system is rigged, but for who? Who is it rigged for? It is rigged for the politician, and it is rigged for those who control the politician. And how do they control the politician? Now, people normally refer to this system as capitalism. So they think that capitalism is where, for example, the rich can buy the politicians. That's not capitalism. Capitalism says, if you're honest, if you're going to go by the strictest definition, capitalism says that the government must focus on providing public goods and services and leave the economy alone for a free enterprise for people to freely trade with each other, and only intervene if somebody is trying to use force or fraud to get their way. That's what capitalism said. If we had a capitalist system based on the definition, the government would not be attractive to the PSOJ oligarchs because they wouldn't be able to get them to make laws and policies that gives them an economic advantage over the people. We would in fact have a truly competitive marketplace like they say they want. And if we have a truly competitive marketplace where everybody can freely enter and exit the market, can fully engage in the market without laws and regulations designed to suppress and oppress, then you'll have far more persons being able to participate in the economy, and many poor people would be able to innovate their way out of poverty very, very quickly. And so, as you can see, it's not capitalism that is causing what you're seeing. What you're seeing is being caused by corruption. That's just corruption, plain corruption. Here is how deep that corruption is. Right now in today's Jamaica, from the 1940s until now, There's no difference in the PSOJ and the mafia, except one is legally acceptable and nice, and the other one is not so nice. Now, follow me carefully now. Watch what happened in Jamaica here. In the next election, and every election before that, the PSOJ is going to give the two parties millions of dollars. In the last election, for the few weeks of election, they gave the two parties $300 million. What does that mean? It means they're giving them the means to be able to campaign effectively for your vote. How do they campaign? They buy radio and television ads. They put up billboards and they print posters. They drive around to every nook and cranny. They take off their shoes and walk through rivers and come and sit down beside you in your poverty-stricken situation. They come and visit the old, the elderly, and sit beside them on their beds in their poverty-stricken situation. They buy T-shirts and caps and armbands and they give out. They have health clinics and they have treats for the children. And they do all these nice, lovely things during the campaign using the $300 million, for example, in the last election, given by the PSOJ oligarchy. Now, what does this mean for our electoral process? It really means that you only see the candidates that they have sponsored. You're not going to see the other candidates that they haven't sponsored. The other candidates that they don't want you to see, they won't have the money to compete with the $300 million from the PSOJ oligarchy. They won't have the money to buy the radio, the television, the billboard, the prints, the T-shirts, the caps, and buy the liquor and the curry goat and do the bounce about for the kids or the sports competition or whatever. They won't have the money to do any of that. So in effect, the PSOJ has decided who will be allowed to be on the ballot in a way that is going to be meaningful. Yes, the independent person can go and get 12 persons to nominate them. They can go fill out the form, pay their $5,000 or $6,000 and go through the motion of the process. They can run up and down in a small area that they can physically run up and down in, but they won't be able to reach the 30 and 40 and 60,000 voters in their constituency. They won't be able to find the gas to drive across everywhere. They won't be able to be able to pay volunteers, provide lunch or refreshment and transportation and data and mobility, whatever, to go through all. They won't be able to do that. And they know this. So that's why they said, oh, yes, you can run as an independent. But it's a joke because they already have full control over who is going to be presented to the people. So they have control over who is nominated. And who is nominated? One from this side that they pay for, and one from this side that they pay for. So who is presented to us are the two persons that they have paid for to give us the illusion of an option. So now we feel good. We feel say, yeah man, we can go vote. So we feel good because if you don't do what we say, me go vote you out next time. And have they done what we say? How many times have we voted out the one side for the next side? In 1944, we're voting the JLP first, and then fail. Then we're voting the PNP, and they fail. Then we vote back in after 2 terms, we vote back in the JLP. Then fail to after 2 terms, and we vote back in the PNP. They fail to, and we keep doing it. In 1962, we voted in the JLP. At crucial moments in our history, we give the JLP the first chance. Every time, the first chance in 1944. The first time we had the right to vote, we gave the JLP that first chance. They get the chance to set the tone, to set the stage, to give us an example of good governance so we can say, yeah, man, we can stick with this. But after 2 terms, we quickly run to the other side. And the other side promised us manna from heaven. They promised us free everything. Free education, free healthcare, free food, whatever. Free electricity, free water, whatever it is. They promised us everything. And we run over that side. And then after 2 years of whipping, we run back over to the other side. And we keep the seesaw going until 1962, 18 years later from the first election. Again now, we say, give the JLP a chance. And they come with a new leader because they use leaders, and sometimes they put new leaders, right? And the new leaders make us feel like there's change. You know, we have a new fresh face. You know, might be the first time it was a whitish looking man, then the next time it's a darkish looking man, then the next time it's a woman, then the next time it is a converted politician who say him converted, you know, him see the light now, him see better now, and we vote for him and him fail us to, then we say, okay, try a young one now. What we don't realize, it doesn't matter. It does not matter which of them or which leader they have. You see, manly, mean well, want to do well, but it can't work because the moment you start to do something different from what they want, they're going to pull the plug on you. So we have to be prepared from now that we don't need them and we're not going to use them. And so we're going to build a system. We're going to build an organization now, which is independent of them. And then when we're elected, we'll mash up the system there. So the UIC's approach is we are going to take the path of great resistance, which is to educate and empower our people to come on board and say the only way out of this is if we own the party, if we own the movement, if we fund the movement, if we volunteer in the movement, and if we vote for the movement, to get rid of that system. No more partisan system, no more divide and conquer system. We're not going to continue to use the colonial master's weapon against ourselves. We're going to get rid of that. And so the UIC's approach is to say, let's build a movement which is owned and operated by the people of Jamaica, as opposed to a party which is owned and operated by the PSOJ Oligarchy through some pawns and minions. I feel so sorry for a person like Damian Crawford and Lisa Anna, for example, and others, but there are ones that you are quite familiar with. Andre Orton, these young people, they mean well, or so they suggest. And then they join these organizations and find out that their hands are tied. And before they come out and just tell us exactly and say, you know what, this is what it is, they just sit on your night. And then they come on from time to time and tell us nice sounding things, knowing very well that if they are elected in this or that group, whether it's this party or the other one, that it will make no difference. All the nice things that they say will come to naught because they're bought and paid for and owned by the PSOJ oligarchy, who will fund their campaign and own them after the campaign. So if they're elected, all the nice things that they told you, they will not be able to deliver on it. And so the UIC has built a different approach. Our approach is to say, let's own this movement. And then now, when we win the election, we have some key things to do. Number one, we have to make sure that we vote for, in a referendum, a new constitution that does away with that system that allows the PSOJ to control our government and by extension, our lives and our economy. So we're going to introduce a 100% publicly funded election system. No more big money. No more private sector money will be a part of our election system. Instead, what you're going to have is candidates qualifying based on them taking a good governance course, an exam, and if they pass that and demonstrate that they have the skills, 100% publicly funded. So now if they have this, if they take the good governance exam, take the course, which will be free to all Jamaicans. So you take the course and prove that you understand the civics, you understand things like statistics, you understand world history, you understand Jamaican history. Therefore, you have the knowledge set to be able to truly represent the people you claim you want to represent. Then you also demonstrate as a part of your qualification that you have the experiential skills necessary. So in this new system, not anybody can run for office. It doesn't mean you need to have a degree, but you need to prove academically that you are mentally prepared to deal with the rigors of government and be in a position to effectively contribute to the governance process. And part of that is to show that you have experience in business or employment that required you to demonstrate leadership and managerial skills. And when you marry those two things, the academic competencies, the ability to analyze and reason and communicate, and you have the experiential side, you have 5 to 10 years experience in a leadership role and in a managerial role where you're able to manage, plan, organize, direct something, working with people and demonstrating those capacities, then you qualify. Now, when you qualify, well, you're not finished qualifying yet. You have a third thing, which is you have to now go and get some nominators, some persons to nominate you in your constituency to say they're willing to nominate you for the position you want to offer yourself for. And if you get those nominators, and for you to get them, they have to be agreeing to give up their vote. Because when they nominate you, that vote becomes yours. They can't later on in the election go and vote for somebody else. In the current system, you can do that. You can nominate somebody and vote for somebody else. But in our system, the new system, when you nominate a person, you automatically have given up your vote. So that will mean you have serious nominators. And then subsequent to that now, you get equal access to radio, television, internet, town halls, and debates. So it means if you're poor, you're not disadvantaged by your poverty because you're going to get the same access to these methods of communicating with your potential voters. And if you're rich, you don't have an advantage because you can't use your own money. And if you're connected to the rich, you can't get an advantage because you can't get their money. You're going to be on the same level and the same platform as the poor candidate, so to speak. Yes, JMH, we're also going to have now the next part, which is called the auditing phase. So if you're going to run for office now, your background will be checked, your finances will be audited, right? Where did your assets come from? All of that will be checked out. And then during the campaign, what you say will also be fact-checked to make sure that the people who are listening are getting the truth or getting factual information. And then after that now, the people get to vote. And with our system, you'll be able to vote online from anywhere in the world. So once you're a Jamaican citizen, and you're therefore in our database as such, you will have the right to vote from anywhere in the world. And you don't lose that right because you're not living here. You'll still have that right. As long as you are a Jamaican citizen, you'll be able to vote. You'll be able to vote from anywhere in the world, anywhere in Jamaica, no long lines or anything like that. Now, this is how we are going to strip away the power of the PSOJ oligarchy and the power of the colonial powers, because now you can't control the government through the electoral process by spending your big money. So let me get your feedback on this now. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with the approach that the UIC? There are other parts to it, but I'm just stopping there for now. Do you agree with the approach of the UIC on eliminating the PSOJ oligarchy from continuing to control our elections? Do you agree? Type yes if you do, no if you don't, or a question mark if you're unclear on the matter. Please go ahead and do that now, so I can get your feedback and it can inform, my my own knowledge of your take on the matter. All right, so Sama says fully, JMH is 100%, and Sweet Lady or Sweet 80 10372 says yes. Alan Scott says yes as well. He agrees. Sonia says yes. Shut it down for sure, Alan Scott. So that is our goal. We're going to eliminate. And N. Smith says this approach is one of the main reasons for my support of the UIC. It's one of mine too. Now, one of the other ways that we are going to strengthen our governance. Victor Williams says, I'd like you to debate them, Sir PM. I'd love that. I would love to debate them for sure. Definitely. I doubt they're going to allow that, because debating them would mean giving me a front seat to communicating with the Jamaican people. And as you can see, every effort has been made to prevent me from communicating with the Jamaican people. We don't have the money to buy the media space yet. And we have been contained on all the other fronts, to get the message out. And there's also a problem with the Jamaican people themselves. For example, many persons wouldn't spend the time to sit down and listen to what I'm talking about, because they need sensationalism. They need excitement. And I'm not a very excited person. I'm not very exciting. I'm not, I don't do a lot of things to excite people. I'm really more a problem solver. I'm more interested in solving the problem than pretending to solve the problem, or making you feel good, or making you feel entertained. I'm not really good at the entertainment factor of politics. I'm really focused on, so I spend most of my energy on what is the solution? How do we fix this? So I study the economy, I study the governance model, and I look for what do we need to do to fix the problem. I'll give you another example. Like almost all of you, if you've ever gone to any government office, any government building, where you have to get service from the government, you find that it's a miserable experience. They're slow, it's long, it's painful, and you wonder, why are they like this? Why can't we have something better than this? These long, inefficient, you go to the tax office, you wait forever. Even why do you have to go to the tax office? Why don't they have, more electronic solutions for you to work with, to pay a parking ticket? Why is it so difficult to pay? Why you have to go, you have to live in Montego Bay, and if you get a ticket in Kingston, you have to leave Kingston to come to leave Montego Bay to come to Kingston to pay the ticket. And if you want to challenge the ticket, you have to leave Montego Bay to come to Kingston to the court. It is so very inefficient here and ineffective. Very inefficient. Very ineffective. And just imagine if in our government offices, everybody who is a frontline worker, a customer-facing worker, had metrics that were tied to performance. So, for example, one of the metrics would be, how many persons did you serve today? So the more people you serve, the higher would be your performance rating, and therefore your performance component would be a higher number. And let's say another part of the metrics was how the customers rate you. So when a customer gets your service, they get a text message on their phone that they can reply to by just pressing simple button, nothing complicated, where they just say whether they were happy or unhappy with the service. Were you pleasant? Were you efficient? Whatever it is. And those metrics go into your performance. And so every month when you're going to get your paycheck, and it looks at your previous month performance, it will capture those metrics, number of customers served, for example, and the satisfaction rating of those customers. So let's say there are two of you in that space, and one of you served 100 customers for the week, roughly, and the other person served 50. So they're very slow and you're fast. And then also this person had a satisfaction rating of, let's say, 80%, said they were very satisfied or somewhat satisfied with your service. And this other person had, 50%, 50 persons, and only 10% of them said they were satisfied. Clearly, you can see the difference, and that affects your performance compensation. I guarantee you, if you had those metrics baked into frontline workers that you're seeing at these tax offices and so on, you'd quickly see shorter lines and have happier experiences. These are basic things that we can do in government that will make the experience of the Jamaican people so much better and reduce the aggravation and increase our happiness level and our satisfaction level and our productivity level. When you have to spend, I went to court yesterday. I was at court. I got there from 9:30 and I didn't leave there until about 1:30. And that was a good day. Prior to that, I had another court case. I got there again about 9:30 or 9 o'clock-ish, and I didn't leave there until 5 o'clock, sometime after 5 at court. So very, very inefficient. So Alan Scott says, right now we need 10 seats and we're going to clear it. Will cost 20 million per seat. We need MP to be on probation. I put an advertisement on the radio last year, which ran twice in the morning and evening, and it was not that expensive. Have the UIC tried the radio advertisement route? Yes, we have done some radio advertisement as well. And it's not expensive if you're doing one-offs, so to speak. But, you can't just do one-off advertisement. You need sustained advertisement for it to be meaningful. It has to be repetitive and so on. So, yeah. By the way, I noticed everybody wants to jump and talk about, the future, which is fine. Like, how do we get elected and so on. But what I'm focused on tonight is to really highlight for us so we understand clearly the role of the PSOJ oligarchy in our system, how powerful that oligarchy is, and what we now have to do to overcome that. N. Smith says, we would also have less cutting of the line by friends or those letting off a thing. Absolutely. Most definitely. Most definitely. All right, so I'm going to cut it off here for tonight. So let me know if you have any questions that you want me to answer in the next 4 minutes. Let me know if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer here. Mr. Patterson, I think you are way behind right now. At this point, I think you guys had done the groundwork right. The UIC would be on the lips of 65% of the citizens. Right now, the people of Jamaica not interested in the PNP nor the GLP, but at the end of the day, when the next election call, the said 35% will vote, that voted in 2020 will make that decision. Well, Gary Gordon, yes, we are behind. The question is, what do we do to be in a better position? What do we do? Some people don't want me to talk about it, but what do we do with $5 million for the entire year? So it's up to you, Gary. I mean, if we decide to fund the UIC, we can do a lot more. If we don't, we can't do it. UIC need over 6,000 people volunteering to be indoor agent at each polling station so that they don't throw away the ballot. Very good thought, Jamie. We actually need about 12 persons in each polling division, indoor agents, outdoor agents to man the post and so on. And then we can protect the ballot. Wilson says, any protest this year? Well, it all depends. We will respond to things based on the need. Is there any law that can terminate a government to continue reign? In Jamaica, there's no law per se that will terminate the government. There are provisions for the Governor General to do certain things, but you'd have to get to a certain extreme situation for that to happen. So no, there's nothing, generally. The people, however, could force the government out if we rise up and decide to rise up against the government and hit the streets and really make it uncomfortable. Just like how the taxi operators rise up, not even fully against this foolish child seat thing, and the government quickly had to pull back because of that. But I want to tell you, a lot of this is a distraction, while other things are being done. Dorrit says every polling station need at least 10 workers. Absolutely, Dorrit. You need 2 indoor agents, 2 outdoor agents. You need some drivers and some conductors to help to make the whole thing work. Ultras people said they need to see you. Sure. Organize a group, Maisie Miller. Organize a group of 30 or so people, and I'll be happy to come out and see them. Because I'd have to make a special effort because, what I do, I tell for the entire period, last year, this year, well, 2021, 2022, I have asked people to go out and organize groups of 10 in their communities and create a community group, and I would come and see them. So those persons who do that, I have gone to see them. Those who didn't do it, then, I can't go. Yes, you should debate them, Mr. Pat. Yeah, man. Paul, I'm ready to debate them. They're not ready to debate me. There is no impeachment or recall in our constitution. That's correct. Yard Knight says, guess the UIC has no PR person then. The UIC has PR persons at different points in time. But what do you mean by having PR? I mean, if we have enough money, we can buy all the PR in the world, And Straight Up says, one man can't run a country. That's absolutely true. One man can't run a country. So you have to come and help me. So all of us, if we want the change, then of course we come together and we do it. If we don't want the change, then we sit and talk and criticize and let the thing continue. Yard Knight says, can't expect any victory that way. What way, Yard Knight? I'm not sure. Please explain. Patriotic Vibes, Mr. Patterson, are there mile marks set by the UIC to know when the set goals or objectives are being met? Patriotic Vibes, the UIC is very, very intelligent. We understand setting smart goals, goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, researched, and time bound. We understand how to do SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. We know how to build a balanced scorecard and set measures. So I know your question means well, but believe me, we're not that dumb. We have some qualified people here who understand all the things, but you cannot do things without money. Sonia, go and put the pressure on, however you put it on. If you're not on the news, if you're not in the news cycle, there's only so much pressure you can put on. The bottom line is, my friends, as I try to tell you, a number of times, there is no miracle to winning an election. The UIC could easily go and join the other two and appeal to the private sector organization of Jamaica and say, give us a piece of your 300 million as well now, for example. And if they give us a piece of the 300 million, then we're just like the other two and we're fully in the game, the way it's being played, and you would gain nothing. So if we're going to be a successful movement the way I have described it to you, then we're going to have to do what needs to be done. We're going to have to fund. So 200 of you last year donated to the UIC, and that helped. Well, I shouldn't say you, 200 of us, because I'm a part of the 200. Well, actually, no, that 200, because that's online. We had people offline as well, like myself, who donated through the banking system. But online, through a website, about 200 persons donated through that portal. And that made a big difference. But we need more. Yeah. Victor, I get frustrated when I go in one of those offices. Yeah, man, I know. We understand it's not your thing, but your audience, the Jamaica people, like the little excitement. It shouldn't be the main goal, but it can. Yeah, man, I'm not opposed to excitement. I'm just telling you, I'm not the excitement. I am not the theatrical kind of person. So what you see is what you get. So I'm not going to be the guy that is going to be the clown or the jester. There might be other persons who within the movement who can provide that, and that's what having a group of people are. So at some point there might be somebody on the team who can give you or give those who want it that level of excitement and that kind of stuff. That's fine. I don't think anything is wrong with that. I'm just not the man. I'm not the person who is going to give you a lot of excitement that way. Plug out the sun, Mr. Patterson. What sun? What is the sun? Mr. Patterson, do you believe that the ranked choice voting system is harder to rig? What is the ranked choice voting system? I don't know what that is. The bottom line, you see, when it comes on to voting, is who determines the candidates. And as long as you have big money that can determine the candidates, it doesn't matter which system you put, they will get the outcome they want. Yard Knight says, just use it for grab the attention and send the real message, not saying Mr. P needs to start wearing the blue Clarks and say Radam, but the PR person, yeah, man, you can have PR that can manage that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's only two ways I see to defeat the project. That's Sam, I'm not sure what you mean. Cool Guy says, I understand the movement so well that I don't even have to ask a question. Wonderful, Cool Guy. You have been here all this time. You've been following. So you truly understand what we're doing and what we're about. Yeah. No more than 2 consecutive terms. Yard Night, I disagree. I don't believe in term limits. I know that it's one of the programmed answers to suggest that people mean well. If you're the Prime Minister, I haven't done it yet. But I don't believe in term limits. I don't see the value in it. The purpose of term limits is if you have a bad system and you plan to maintain the bad system, you need term limits. Remember, the only way that you need to have term limits is if you have the overall system is bad and corrupt, and so you need now to use term limits to limit how long a bad person can stay in position. But I want you to think about it carefully. Why not fix the system as opposed to trying to create a system that gives you problems? Let's say you have a lawyer. Because you get into trouble, right? And let's say you normally get into trouble. Not that you're doing anything bad enough, but you're in a situation where somebody or others are always trying to get you, and so they try to use legal means. And you have a lawyer, and this lawyer is doing a good job for you, but there's a law that says you cannot have that lawyer for more than 2 years. So after 2 years, you lose the lawyer and you have to go search for another lawyer because of this artificial term limit. Does that make sense? Let me give you another example now. Take Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew was prime minister for approximately, I think he was prime minister for approximately 35 or so years. I'll have to double check. Don't quote me on that. But at least 30 years he was prime minister. Now, he was the absolute best prime minister from 1965 until he demitted office. He was absolutely the best. I would not have wanted a term limit to remove him artificially. What you want is an effective democracy, meaning democratic process, not even democracy, because that's a different story. You want an effective democratic process so that if the people wants to replace him, they can do so and they're not hijacked or deterred by big money, for example, being able to push the people's will aside. Yeah. So the UIC goes for the problem at its source. The source problem of our system is not having a 100% publicly funded system the way that I have just described it. On top of that, now you have other things that needs to be done, like proper separation of duties, which the UIC has also engineered into the new system. So separating the Senate from the House, from the executive. Right now, they're all mixed up. The Prime Minister is there, who is drawn from the legislature. He pull a few of them, MPs them into the cabinet. So both the House of Rep is now mixed up with the executive, and it can appoint 13 persons in the Senate and pull some of them to be a part of his cabinet. So the Senate mix up in the cabinet. So you have the Senate mix up, you have the House mix up, and then you have a whole heap of conflict of interest and a whole heap of corruption resulting. So the UIC got to the source of the problem, fix that. Separate the executive, separate the House, separate the Senate, and then so fund their campaign system that they're not beholden to each other. In the current system, all of the ministers, them are beholden to the Prime Minister because of him have the power to appoint them as ministers and the power to rescind their ministerial positions. So if you keep those bad mechanisms in place, then you'll have the problems why you want to put a term limit in place. But if you fix those problems, get rid of those fundamental problems, then you won't have to put an artificial term limit, which could also backfire and cause you to have to fire your good lawyer just because somebody arbitrarily say it can only serve you for 2 years, for example. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Let me know. Mr. Patterson, please have some people at the electoral office because the PM have that office in his pocket, so they will steal the election to keep. Yes, so again, who don't like to hear it, please hear it. Money. There's no way that I'm going to have anybody in any position of significant influence and control if we can't pay them. Yes, you'll have a few persons who will volunteer and prove loyal and responsible, but it's not that easy. You see here, not that easy at all. Majority of Jamaicans are like children. They care more about the fancy speech than the substance of it. And that's one of the main reasons why JA is in such predicament. Correct, EJW, that's a problem for sure. But what I've noticed though, in my experience going around the island and talking to people, I found that our people are not as bad as we think they are. If they were, the PSOJ oligarchy would not be preventing me from being on mainstream media. They would do nothing. They would say, let the idiot talk, because the people won't get it. But every community I go to and I speak with people, they get it. I stop and I talk with guys at the bar, at the food shop, on the wall in a community. Everywhere that I go, if I just have the audience of the people for 30 minutes and speak to them, they get it. Now, of course, repetition is necessary. So if I speak to them now and then I'm left and gone and they don't see me again for several months, they're gone because they're getting fed every day by TVJ and CVM and so on. Every day you get up and you watch the news, no matter what the subject matter is, you're going to hear PNP, JLP, and never hear normally the UIC. If it's ganja, you won't hear us. If it's crime, you won't hear us. If it's children in school, you won't hear us. They do not, as a policy, all of the media houses do not bother to ask the UIC anything. If we send them a script, they don't bother to read it. If we send them, what do you call it, a press release, nothing. So they do not say to you in Jamaica, today we have this issue and here's what the Prime Minister is saying. That's the JLP view. And then they say to you, here's what the PNP is saying. PNP view. You will not then hear, here's what the UIC is saying. So as long as they have that control over the people by controlling the media that they receive. Now you might say, but there's social media. Now, if you watch carefully on social media, a lot of the people who are following the Jamaica vloggers and stuff are overseas. If you're really hot, if you're a really hot vlogger, meaning you are exciting and you are really impacting in your theatrics, yes, a person will spend some time and watch that. But them don't really have the time to spend watching a serious, conscious discussion that is going to talk about solution. I also found that some people, they don't really like to watch something if it's a specific political party. So if the thing is not aligned to a political party fully, like clearly, they'll go there and listen. But if it's a specific party now, you know, of course, if it was PNP, the GLP would stay away. If it's GLP, the PNP would stay away. And if it's UIC, the GLP and PNP would stay away. And the 63% that are disgusted with the two of them don't even want to hear from anybody else. So it's a little bit more challenging. And how you overcome that challenge now is by being able to buy targeted advertisements and do groundwork operations But you can't do that on air and water. You have to buy water these days. So it requires you to have a bit of resources to do that. And so that's why we encourage persons to get involved to fund the movement. Sosa Bones, they use the diaspora to get the information back to Jamaica. Absolutely, and that's working. Many Jamaicans hear about the UIC from their relatives and friends overseas first. They have many persons, they get called. When I am on the road, person, oh, you are Mr. Patterson. Yes. You know, say, is my cousin or my brother or my mother or uncle or grandmother in Canada or the US or England or so who tell me about the UIC. They had no idea. So, yes, the diaspora is a big part of it. Yeah. Okay. Got it. All right. I've gone way past my time now. So let me thank you all for your time with me tonight. And let me encourage you to go to our website if you haven't done so yet and sign up and join and become a member and donate and share and get all your family and friends to be a part of the UIC movement. And together we'll do it. Remember, one Jamaica, we're stronger together. We can, in fact, pull this off. It was never going to be easy. And remember, you know, many third parties has come and gone. They've come and they have failed and they've faded away. Many have come and gone. So if it was easy, it would be done already. So remember, it's hard, it's difficult. But we are going to do it because we have the stamina and we have, I think the UIC has the clearest vision and the clearest plan that Jamaica has ever seen. We've had third parties before, but they've never had such clarity, such purpose, such vision that completely contrasts us against the others. So it's clear. And so together we can do it. Take care. Have a good night. All the best. Until next time. See you soon.